Hi everyone, welcome to Brothers, Sisters, Strangers video podcast. I'm Ali John Chaudhary, psychotherapist, and today we're going to be going into Rumination Part 3 with my good friend Fern here, and we're going to be going into various topics of interest that will be continuing on from the previous two videos we did. I look forward to speaking with you today about our experiences and the tools that have worked for us.
I'm Fern Chapman, the author of the upcoming book, Brothers, Sisters, Strangers, Sibling, Estrangement, and the Road to Reconciliation. And I always enjoy our talks, and we've had quite a few of them about rumination. We are ruminating about ruminating.
That's a good way of putting it, Fern. I would agree with you. Yes, that's exactly right. So I guess I kind of wanted to start off today with a little bit of private sharing of a very personal experience that happened this week with a colleague of ours. I had a colleague of ours tragically pass away through a car accident, and it really shook me up because this was a warm-hearted person. This was somebody that was very bubbly. She had a great sense of humor. And I always feel that the world gets smaller whenever things like this happen, especially with people that we had a connection with and such. And for me, I was very shaken and taken aback, and I wanted to touch base with my working team and making sure everybody was okay. And to do so, we did a circle of remembrance for this person and her baby. So in that way, it was a double type of grief where it was the mother and the daughter that passed away. And it was very touching for us to be able to bring out the best experiences we had, our collective memories of this person that we had, each of us, and just creating a space to be able to talk and just share, because I think acknowledgement is very important in moments like this. And it was important for me to acknowledge the loss. It was important for us to put words to that loss, and of course to create that space to be able to honor that person in our own way. So I'm happy that we did it that way, because I couldn't see myself not do anything, and I was taken aback when I heard the sad news, and I was called forth to do this, and I think a lot of people were grateful that we did that ritual in that space.
Well, first of all, let me say I'm sorry for your loss. It's a very difficult thing to process.
Yes.
In many ways, I think when you say you needed to have some sort of remembrance, some sort of acknowledgement, that's kind of what we're doing here. We are having some sort of acknowledgement of a terrible grief. And the grief is not death, but estrangement. And to me, I always use the words mourning the living. One of the most painful aspects of estrangement is that it goes on and on and on. And I think some of what you did is actually important if you have to accept an estrangement. And what I mean by that is to actually use some sort of way to memorialize or remember the person you've lost. Whether it's writing a letter, or as one of my survey respondents did, she was a twin and has no relationship with her twin brother, and she decided to make herself twinless. So these are ways in which you can conduct a ceremony or do something. I think it's very important for us to have these moments where we recognize loss.
Yeah. And I would agree with you. I think this is an ambiguous type of loss that needs to be recognized also, because a lot of times people don't talk about it. And I'm faced with people that bring some of this stuff up about not being able to share the memories that they've had growing up in childhood or within their family with somebody else that was there. And for them, that's the hard part. It's the idea of not being able to celebrate or honor perhaps experiences, past experiences, or maybe even parents in some ways. I often hear this, that people find it hard in some cases not to remember a parent with a sibling because of the difficult sibling relationship that affects them.
And I think in some ways, if you don't have some sort of recognition, you do get caught in rumination. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of a perfect way for us to segue into the problems of rumination and how to deal with it. And I know you have a number of tools which I could have used.
Yes, I think we've talked about previously about some mind tools and some emotional regulation tools to kind of bring our bodies back to into a working state and such. And now there's a tool that I like to use that I think is especially important, and this is called the Projector. Now, I've kind of stated something similar along those lines in my Facebook group, Sibling, Estrangement, Sharing, Coping, Connecting. And I think that it's important that we get into that tool today because it's a great tool to help you counter rumination when it happens. And um, I just want to say that not all of you is affected by a problem. Whenever you're experiencing a problem, there's always going to be a part of you that is not affected by that problem. So you can use that to your advantage. And that's what the Projector is all about. So whenever you have something you're going through, there's your own initial default perspective that says, okay, I'm feeling this about my relationship with my sibling. But yet at the same time, if the Projector comes in, the Projector can have a whole different vision with regards to that. So your Projector can say, for example, well, you're all right. You made it this far. This too shall pass, which is one of my favorites, actually. And especially, you did what you needed to do. I think these are all very, very important messages that protecting quality we have within ourselves is able to say and bring out. So,
What you're really describing is reframing an experience. So one of the techniques I've used as well is to write down all of the negative assumptions about the experience. For example, with estrangement, there must be something wrong with me. And then reframe it and write, no, the positive things. And
exactly.
so, I think you're speaking to the same idea.
Exactly. Yes. And that's exactly right what you're saying there, because you're accessing that part of yourself within yourself that is able to look at it from a different vantage point. So that's very important to be able to do that. And, I mean, rumination happens a variety of ways, oftentimes when we're hurt, we'll tend to relive past circumstances and anchor ourselves into, that past hurt and such. And I think that we need to ask ourselves certain questions in some ways, like we were saying earlier. In some ways, for example, something else your Projector could say is, "You did well the last time you felt like this, and remember to do this." So sometimes the Projector can bring out the best circumstances to make sure that you do okay. Now, you can take this even further and use the Projector in a variety of different ways. You can get very creative with it. And one way to get creative with it is to give it an image. You can personify your creator, your Projector rather, as a way to, can be, for example, somebody in the media, in movies, could even be a mythical creature if you wanted it to be, that. So you can use an image of somebody that would play that role model for the type of Projector that you would be. I mean, somebody, for example, could have a goalie as their Projector with a big mask and that big hockey stick, and just protecting themselves. That could be an example of somebody's Projector, It could be a whole variety of different images that you can use that would, of course, respond to what you're experiencing. So I would say to people, get creative with it. Use that image to your benefit. Choose an image that sticks with you as a person. And that way, that's going to make it a lot more powerful. And all you would need to do is just think about that image, and it would bring you right into the mindset of the Projector. The more you do it, the more you're anchoring that positive resource within yourself.
I mean, and underlying that, I think, is the importance of actually just protecting yourself. We're no longer children, so we don't have parents to protect us. Therefore, we have to take on that role ourselves. And most of us do that in the real world, but sometimes, especially when we feel insecure or unsure of ourselves or have low self-esteem, we avoid that. And that really opens you up for a lot of pain and assault.
Yeah. And that's very true. So I think in some ways that's where the rumination can start to happen. And when you start to judge yourself and put yourself down, well, why is my family not like this? Or I can't express myself fully with him or with her in that way. Those are the type of questions that can kind of, start to make us kind of judge ourselves and get us in rumination. So a good way to do that, again, is to bring in the protector in the way we've described. And you can even do a checkup in the morning, for example, with the protector, even checking in either in the morning or at night at the end of your day, like, how did my day go? You revise your day in your own mind, and then you use the perspective of your protector. What does your protector think of your day in and as you go into it and as your day ended? So it's a great time to use that and to build that habit of having that dual voice within yourself to encourage you and to help you to remember how you can get through this.
And I think by doing that, you are lessening rigidity in your thinking. That we all have a tendency to get really invested in our perspective and our hurts. And this is going to sound like I'm coming out of left field, but I think in some ways it's really important to consider another drastic way to get out of rumination. And it certainly was the solution for me. And that is to let go of some of the hurts, or most of the hurts. You don't have to have your sibling see the world the way you see it. You can have a relationship with somebody without having this alignment. You don't have to have an apology. You can have a relationship with somebody and accept that this is what they think. But it's difficult, but I think it's very important. And actually what I'm saying is, if you want to end rumination, how about reconciling? Now, of course, you have to be in a safe place. You don't want to be abused by your sibling. But if these are matters that divide you, that are possibly bridged, why not try?
I think in some ways what you're bringing up is very interesting, because you're alluding to a fluidity in the boundary that we've worked hard at building in some ways with regards to our siblings. And I think a lot of us have done that to feel safe, like you say. And I think that acknowledging that need for safety is very important, and adapting that accordingly to each situation is key here. So I would agree with you that sometimes we can get crystallized and we can become very rigid and identify with the hurt as a means to remember to stay vigilant in some ways. But I also remember when I was doing my own grief and bereavement groups, this was something that did come up, like you're saying. The idea that to love the other person was to feel the pain, because they had that pain of losing that person on a physical level through death. Whereas in some ways, we can still be careful here not to always use that pain as a means to remember why things are the way they are. And in some ways, it's important that we don't stay stuck in that past also, because there's a danger in always defining our past experience on that. We're always fluid in terms of people. And again, if you need to have that boundary, it's a safe place to do. And it's a safe place to create that. But as you say, if you can be fluid in that boundary, perhaps, as you said with the sibling, and perhaps surprise yourself maybe a few times where, hey, you can maybe even open conversations in some particular ways. I think that that's fine. And you're still maintaining safety. You're still having that boundary. You still have the protector right here, So
I think that it's particularly challenging because we've had such a long relationship with a sibling, and we tend to regress to some of those childhood responses. It's not necessarily personal that you're being treated this way. It could be, but I think in many cases, each of us is just kind of doing the best we can with what we've got. And if you start to step back and say, this is not about me, it changes everything.
And I like that. I like that depersonalization that you're bringing up with regards to that, because I alluded to that in one of my videos about the chemistry that kind of happens, an interplay when people get together. And sometimes it does that. It's like it's its own thing sometimes. So in some ways, the depersonalization here is very important, because in some ways it's not always about that. It's not always about them, judging you as a person, but just the interplay of various factors that come together in some ways that makes that people don't always necessarily jive in a good way. So it's important to recognize that. And if you're aware of that, then yes, there's a possibility that boundary can be more fluid if you're aware of that and you're still protecting yourself as the need arises.
In my reconciliation with my brother, there have been many times where we've gotten annoyed at each other and felt the rage of the past come overtake us. And each of us has reminded the other, let it go, we're moving on. And that's been helpful, because if we agree at least on that, then we have the possibility of reconciliation. But if we keep going back to all of the things that enraged us throughout the years of estrangement, I don't think there's much future.
I agree, and that's the thing. That's a good gauge to tell in some ways whether this would work or not. And again, what you're alluding to is both of you are making room for your personalities, each of the two of you. So that's the key here too. And a great question to ask yourself, whether you want to do this or not, is what would Projector do in that way, So I think it's a good question to ask. What would my Projector do in this case? And if your Projector says, if you want to try, go for it, then that means there's an opening to that fluidity. And if your Projector says, no, I don't think it's wise right now, then you've got your answer there too. Always checking in with yourself, I think, with regards to where you're at, can be a good way to kind of measure that.
Which is the third eye.
Yeah.
It's always great to talk to you, and I think we probably have concluded our conversations for now on rumination. Unless other viewers would like us to answer more questions on this, we can move forward on other topics that are tangled into estrangement.
Yes, I think that this kind of covers and wraps up, I think, our themes on rumination, because we've talked about it, fairly substantially, and I think that this is a good ending note, I think, on that with regards to this tool that we've talked about and the fluidity and boundaries and such. And I think that that's very important that we remember that. And so we'll, of course, touch on various other topics next time we see each other, Fern. And as always, this is always a great talk for us to have, and I always appreciate this most of all, to put words to our experiences and that of our viewers. Well, thanks again for doing this.
Great to be with you.
All right, Fern, we'll talk again soon. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.